I'm really happy to present today our key learnings for science communication practice that we gained through the iterative development of an evidence-based workshop on heat adaptation. And first I want to introduce the project team to you. That's Bernhard, Sarah, Monika, and me. And after the presentation, we will all be available to answer questions if there are any questions. And now I will first give a quick overview of the project. Wait a second. Need to move the little pictures. I will first give a quick overview of the project and the methods that informed the iterative development of the workshop, and then I will dive into our learnings for science communication practice. So first, to give some background information, why are we developing a workshop on heat adaptation for local communities? It is expected that heat waves will increase in terms of frequency, duration, and intensities. And as we all know, heat waves can cause direct health problems like dehydration or heat stroke, and also indirect health problems like poor air quality. The World Health Organization and the German government therefore recommend the development of heat action plans to counteract the health risks from heat. And in Germany, because of unclear responsibilities and a lack of resources at the local level, these heat adaptation plans can sometimes not be implemented. And this leaves the responsibility with municipalities and local communities to educate themselves about heat adaptation and also take action themselves. And this is where our project comes in, as it aims to develop an evidence-based workshop on heat adaptation behaviors for independent use in German municipalities and local communities. And the workshop itself aims to increase participants' acceptance of heat adaptation and climate protection measures, their willingness to take action on heat adaptation in their own neighborhoods, and to collectively engage in heat adaptation measures. So therefore, it was crucial in our workshops that we also provided the opportunity for networking within the workshop setting. And we started this project in 2022. We then facilitated, evaluated, and further developed our 3 pilot workshops during the pilot phase that was in 2023 and 2024. And the 3 pilot workshops differed in terms of their geographical location. So whether they were implemented in an urban area, a suburban area, or a rural area. And currently we are developing the final workshop that comes with a website with step-by-step instructions on how to prepare, facilitate, and evaluate such a workshop, as well as corresponding materials. So we will also provide video material for the scientific input, a moderation guide for the moderation part of the workshop, and also a handout for participants among various other materials. And we expect to publish this, what we call practice package in 2026. The methods that informed the iterative workshop development were quantitative and qualitative. We conducted surveys before, immediately after, and 6 months after the workshop. We also documented the development of the workshop and conducted systematic observations of the participants, as well as focus group discussions. And here, the project team, persons that were involved in the invitation process, and speakers were involved. And during this whole evaluation process, we received advice and support from the MSCL evaluation coordinator. So the next section will focus on our key learnings for science communication practice after giving this short introduction to the project itself. And this is really about giving you a broad overview of what we learned as researchers in preparing, facilitating, and evaluating such a workshop. And it's less about discussing the results of each method. I clustered our learnings in 3 parts, concerning the preparation of the workshop, the facilitation, and the evaluation. And for the preparation, I will detail with whom we collaborated and connected during the project phase and how we facilitated the invitation management. For the facilitation, I will dive into learnings that we gained during the structure regarding the structure of the workshop, the content of the workshop, the networking within the workshop setting, and the presentation of information materials. And the last part will focus on the evaluation of the workshop and the learnings that we got. So in order to develop and prepare our pilot workshops, we collaborated with partners from science, politics, and practice, such as the LMU University Hospital, the City of Munich and district committees, the fire department, and regional networks for social work, but also for health promotion. And these partners were either existing contacts that we had, mostly Bernard, or new contacts that we made by directly approaching them. And we involved these partners in different phases of the project. So at the beginning, we co-created the first pilot workshop together with partners from science and practice. And these preparatory meetings where we prepared the first pilot workshop were also super valuable for learning more about current heat adaptation measures in Munich, and also specifically in the 3 neighborhoods where we wanted to conduct the workshops. We also gained insights into lessons learned from similar initiatives, including participant recruitment. And as this was a big challenge, it was really good to also learn from other projects. These preparatory meetings also helped us to build a network, for example, for distributing the workshop invitation or also for arranging information materials. And they also helped us to identify needs. So what was really needed in each neighborhood in terms of heat adaptation. And we also mentioned some of these partners in the invitation letters to present our heat workshop as a joint effort between science, politics, and practice. Later on in the project, we then also connected with other initiatives and institutions involved in similar projects, such as KlimaFit, Bär meets Adler, or the City of Munich. And again, this was really helpful to learn from their experience that they gained in similar projects. And overall, it can be summarized that we had really positive experiences with directly approaching partners, initiatives, and institutions. And we experienced everyone to be really open and supportive and wanting to collaborate with us. So this is something that encourages us to also in further projects approach partners. Regarding the invitation management, we aim to invite stakeholders from all core areas of local civil society. And therefore, as a first step, we had to identify these core areas. And we used existing heat plans to do such. And from this, from the existing heat plans, we then developed a template that contained subcategories and main categories, and I will dive a bit into this now. So for the first workshop, we identified and approached persons or institutions using this template that contained 5 main categories: the district policies, city administration, public services, economy, culture, and tourism. And as an example, I also highlight here the subcategories of public services. So one of these main categories that contain, for example, childcare facilities, schools, physicians, nursing homes, pharmacies, clubs, residential homes. So it was really comprehensive and broad. And we identified for all of these categories contacts and then approached them individually. So as you can imagine, this was a really resource-intensive process. And therefore, we tested two different approaches in Pilot Workshop 2 and Pilot Workshop 3. In Pilot Workshop 2, we first identified and contacted well-connected local stakeholders, so not the individuals that we aimed to recruit for our workshop, but people that were really well connected in each neighborhood. And then we conducted a focus group discussion with these stakeholders to identify who should be involved in the HEAT workshop using the template that I just talked about, and which networks could be used to reach these people. And these, after the focus group discussions, the people that were involved in the discussion then reached out to the persons that were identified to be necessary to include in the workshop. And therefore, we somehow outsourced the process of inviting participants, and this was less resource intensive. And then in the third pilot workshop, we approached persons or institutions slowly through one well-connected stakeholder. There was a climate adaptation manager in the respective neighborhood. And here we delegated the entire invitation process to this one person. So this was even less resource intensive for us. And yeah, what we take out of this is that given the resources that we invested and the number of workshop participants that we had, the approach we used in Pilot Workshop 2 appears to be the most feasible. And just to show you some of the materials that we provided the stakeholders with to make the information process, the invitation process for them not too effortful, was one email. So here they received already a text that I could just copy and send to the potential participants, and also instructions for using this material. And then here you can see an appendix to this email that details a bit more about the workshop. What were the aims? When would it take place? Where would it take place? And so on. One second. Regarding the structure of the workshop, we have two key learnings. One was to allocate time for welcome remarks from partners in science, politics, and practice. So the people that were also involved in our invitation letter, they then had 2 minutes or so to explicate why heat adaptation would be important from their perspective. And the other learning that we gained was to allocate time for questions and discussions of results from group work in the plenary to really plan enough time for this. And regarding the content of the workshop, it was also really helpful to start with a brief introduction into the current state of heat adaptation in the respective municipality. We tested this in Pilot Workshop 3, where the climate adaptation manager gave a brief introduction on measures that are currently being taken. And this could visually look like this a bit. So this was a slide that he used that showed a newspaper article and also a map with cool spots or water fountains. So yeah, this increased participant interest. This is what we know from observing the participants. And then another learning concerning the content of the workshop was to refine the more practical part of the workshop in terms as being way more interactive. So in the first two pilot workshops, we first provided participants with information on heat adaptation measures, and then afterwards we asked for their input. And in the third pilot workshop, we turned this around. So we first asked participants to think about measures they could take to protect themselves or others in the heat, and then we provided additional information. So this is a bit what you see here on the on our prototype of this exercise. So the participants could write the measures that they would think are important on the notes, and then they could stick them to the poster, and we could add information that would be relevant from our perspective. And this approach increased the interactivity, as I said. And what was also really important was that participants then referred less often to the measures that were beyond their control, because this was as you can see here in the right corner, that here we have our own section for outside of my scope. So they would have it visualized that different measures exist, and there are some that they can take themselves and some that they can take themselves. And later on, participants also had the opportunity to prioritize these measures using sticky notes. So they could, they had 3 sticky notes, and they could put them on the measures that they would think are the most important and they would want to do. Concerning the networking, we experienced it to be better to include the networking as part of the workshop rather than afterwards. The 3 pilot workshops took place Friday afternoon. So the motivation to stay after the workshop was not so high, and therefore it was really beneficial to include the networking as part of the workshop. And regarding the seeding, we tested 2 different options. In the second pilot workshop, the seeding was assigned by the project team. And in the third pilot workshop, we encouraged participants via email beforehand and again upon arrival to sit next to someone they didn't know yet, to increase the networking between different core areas of local civil society. And we chose this approach in the third pilot workshop to avoid that participants would feel patronized. And we made good experiences with both approaches. We also aim to encourage networking and collective engagement after the workshops, and therefore provided a networking list. And participants could sign in for this list during the workshop. That would look a bit like this, and receive the networking list afterwards. We further provided the participants with additional information materials that would concern, for example, heat adaptation measures, the health risks from heat, and so on. And we learned that it's not enough to simply put them on group tables and not refer to them during the workshops. So in the second and third pilot workshop, we then designated a certain area for the information materials, and the moderator would also refer to them during the workshop. And this was, this was really effective for the participants to also pay attention on the information materials. Regarding the evaluation of the workshop, and this is also my last slide, we encountered some limitations in the quantitative data. So we had a really small sample size in total, and the participant dropout was especially high in the second survey that was conducted 6 months after each workshop. So learning could be that an incentive would probably be needed. Of course, this is not always doable. We also adjusted one construct due to content and didactic revisions of the workshop, and therefore the results must be interpreted in relation to the respective workshop. And it's more difficult to compare results between workshops. And given these limitations, it was really valuable to complement the quantitative data with data from the observations and the focus group discussions. And the observations really allowed us to capture reactions such as agreement or uncertainty, or disinterest or interest. So this was really a helpful method for us to also further develop the workshop. And we also started with one observer, and then from the second pilot workshop on, we had at least two people observing. Of course, this depends on the group size, but two people were really necessary if we would also want to observe the interaction phases. And because this is a really comprehensive and resource-demanding evaluation for the practice package, we developed 3 different evaluation packages. One that is less resource-intensive, one that is medium resource-intensive, and a more comprehensive package. So this will then be published together with the package in 2026. And with that, I thank you for your attention and for your time.